Tell cardiology 4 means 4. My father doesn't have spare hours. You work here.
I do.
I didn't know you'd come back to the city.
Damien.
Understood.
Sophie.
You work here.
I do.
I didn't know you'd come back to the city.
Understood.
I didn't come back for the city.
I'm late.
You usually were. Almost done flat. Hold still for me, okay? Visitors don't wear those.
The 7th floor of Mercy General smelled like antiseptic and cold coffee at 4 in the afternoon. A man in a charcoal suit walked the corridor toward the ICU, phone pressed to his ear, already impatient. He turned the corner and nearly collided with a woman in a white coat. He stepped back, he looked at her, and something in his face went very still, not because of the boy holding her hand, because of her. Damien Voss did not like hospitals. He liked control, and hospitals gave him none. Machines beeped on schedules he could not set. Doctors used soft words to say hard things. His father lay in a room at the end of the hall, and for 11 days Damien had been unable to buy, threaten, or negotiate his way out of it. So when the woman in the white coat stepped into his path, his first feeling was annoyance. Someone in his way, someone slowing him down. Then she looked up, and the annoyance curdled into something older. He knew that face. 8 years had passed, but he knew the exact shape of her jaw, the way she held her chin level when she was bracing herself. Sophie. She was thinner now, or maybe just tired in a way she hadn't been at 26. There were fine lines at the corners of her eyes. A hospital badge hung from a lanyard at her chest, and her hand moved to it without thinking, folding the plastic card over once, then flat again. A small nervous gesture he remembered from a lifetime ago. "Damien," she said. Not surprised. That was the thing that unsettled him most. She said his name the way you name weather you'd check the forecast for. "You work here," he said. It wasn't a question. His voice came out flatter than he intended. "I do." Beside her stood a boy, maybe 7, in a striped shirt too big at the shoulders. He was turning a small plastic toy over in his hands, a little figure, red and blue, and Damien noticed, without knowing why he noticed, that the boy had lined up 3 others in a neat row on the vinyl bench beside him. Perfectly spaced, tallest to shortest, Damien's eyes passed over the child the way they passed over furniture. "I didn't know you'd come back to the city," he said to Sophie. "I didn't come back for the city." There was something underneath the words. He didn't have time to find it. His father's cardiologist had promised a call at 4, and Damien had built his whole life on being the man who was where he needed to be, when he needed to be there. "I'm late," he said. "You usually were." It landed clean, without heat. She wasn't fighting, she simply stated it and looked away, back toward the boy, and put a hand on the child's shoulder. Damien's fingers moved to his left cuff. He straightened the link there, turned it a 1/4 inch, though it needed no straightening. He had done it in boardrooms and funerals and the backs of black cars for 20 years, and he had never once noticed he did it. He walked past her. He should have kept walking. Any other day he would have. But at the end of the corridor he stopped, hand on the ICU door, and looked back. She was crouched down in front of the boy now, fixing something on his wrist, a plastic band. A hospital band, white against the child's small arm. Damien frowned. Visitors didn't wear those. The door hissed open. A nurse called his name. His father was awake and asking for him, and the moment folded shut before he could open it. He let it go. He would spend the rest of his life wishing he hadn't. He hadn't always been afraid. That was the part no one believed about Damien Voss, that under the tailored armor was a man who had once been terrified and had made the worst decision of his life out of that fear, and had spent 8 years pretending it was strategy. He remembered the apartment. Not the penthouse he owned now, the earlier one, glass and steel above the river, back when the Voss fortune was a promise instead of a fact. His father had built the company from nothing and guarded it like a wound. And his father had rules, the chief among them: blood stays clean, no entanglements, no scandal, no woman who wasn't chosen for what she brought to the name. Sophie had brought nothing the old man could count. She was a nurse. She worked 12-hour shifts and came home smelling of the ward and laughed too loudly at his jokes and saw straight through him in a way that had frightened and thrilled him in equal measure. He'd loved her. He knew that now with a clarity that felt like a knife. Then she told him she was pregnant, and the fear arrived. He remembered his father's voice on the phone that week, cold as the river. "If you marry down, you inherit nothing. I've written it into the trust. Test me." He remembered doing the math. He remembered choosing. He remembered the envelope. He had put it on the kitchen table between them, thick with cash, and told her she had two choices: walk away from the pregnancy or walk away from him. He made his voice hard so it wouldn't shake. He remembered how she went very still, how her hand rose to the collar of her scrubs, folded the fabric once, then smoothed it flat, the same gesture, he would realize years later, that she made with her badge in the corridor, a tell for the moment the ground opened under her. She hadn't screamed, he'd almost wished she would. She looked at the envelope, she looked at him, and then she picked up her keys, not the money, and she said the only thing she said that night. "You'll regret which one of us you protected." She walked out. She didn't slam the door. He told himself she'd made the choice he'd pushed her toward. He never asked. Asking would have made it real, and he was very good, in those years, at not making things real. He built the company. He buried his father's rival. He turned the Voss name into a fortress. He straightened his cuffs in 1,000 mirrors and told himself the fear had been wisdom. He never let himself wonder what the boy would have looked like. Now, 11 floors up, his father was dying of a cancer of the blood, and the doctors were talking about donors and matches and last chances, and Damien sat in a plastic chair in an ICU and could not, for the life of him, stop seeing Sophie's level chin in that corridor. "I didn't come back for the city." He hadn't asked her what she meant. He was still, in the ways that mattered, a man who didn't ask. She had almost broken exactly once. Not in the delivery room, alone, gripping a stranger nurse's hand because there was no one else to call. Not at the eviction notice, or the second job, or the semester she nearly dropped out of medical school because the childcare fell through and a professor told her, kindly, that some people simply weren't built to do both. She almost broke on an ordinary Tuesday when the boy was 4. She'd come off a night rotation at 2 in the morning, feet swollen, eyes burning, and there had been a letter waiting on the counter, the tuition balance, in red, with a date that might as well have been a cliff. She had exactly enough in the account to pay it, or to keep the lights on. Not both. She sat down at the little kitchen table in the little rented apartment, and she put her face in her hands, and for the first time in 4 years, she let herself think the thought she never allowed. I could call him. One call. She knew the number by heart, the way you know a scar. Damien Voss would not miss the money. He would write a check without looking up. Her son could have everything. The tutors, the schools, the soft landing she was killing herself to fake. She sat with the phone in her hand for a long time. Then a small sound made her look up. Her son was standing in the hallway in his dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up, clutching the stuffed rabbit he refused to sleep without. He'd heard her come in. He always heard her come in. "Mama, why are you sad?" She wiped her face fast, the way she'd learned to. "I'm not sad, baby. I'm tired, grown-up tired." He padded over and climbed into her lap without asking, the way only very small children do, arranging himself against her like he belonged there, which he did. And then he did a thing that undid her. He reached up and patted her cheek, twice, the exact way she patted his when he scraped a knee. "It's okay," he said. "I'll take care of you when I'm big." She held him and she cried without letting the crying reach her shoulders, silent, the way you learn to cry when there's a sleeping child in the house. And somewhere in that dark kitchen she made a decision, and it was the decision that shaped everything after. She put the phone down. She would not give her son a father who had to be paid to want him. She would not teach that boy that love was a transaction, or that a person's worth was a number in a trust. She would raise him with less and give him more. And she would show him, not tell him, show him what it looked like to be kind when the world had not been kind to you. So she did. She worked the extra shifts. She finished the degree, and then the residency, and then the fellowship, hematology, the study of the blood. She would appreciate the irony only much later. She taught her son to line his shoes up by the door and share his lunch and say thank you to the bus driver by name. When he asked, at 6, why he didn't have a dad like the other kids, she knelt down to his level and told him the truest thing she could, that wasn't the whole thing. "You have a mom who chose you," she said, "on purpose, every single day." He'd thought about that with the serious face he made, and then he'd nodded like it settled something, and gone back to lining up his toy figures on the windowsill. Tallest to shortest. He never knew why he did it. It just felt right to him, to put things where they belonged. He grew up thoughtful, not because she got lucky, because she decided, on a Tuesday at 2 in the morning, what he would be worth, and never once let him doubt it. She never told him his father's name. She thought she never would. If this story is reaching you, if you know what it costs to choose the right thing when the easy thing is sitting right there on the table, take a second and subscribe. These are stories about the quiet people the world underestimates, and the moment the world finds out it was wrong. Stay with me. The part that changes everything is close. The transplant worked. That was the impossible part. The part the doctors said with careful wonder in their voices. Elias Voss, 81 years old, given weeks, had received a marrow transplant from a rare, near-perfect donor match, and his counts were climbing, and the cancer that had been eating his blood was in retreat. Damien should have felt relief. Instead, he felt a low, unplaceable dread, like a name on the tip of his tongue. He cornered the attending physician outside his father's room. Dr. Reyes was gentle and tired, and had learned long ago how to manage powerful men who needed to feel in control of the uncontrollable. "I want to thank the donor," Damien said. "Personally, whatever it costs, set it up." "Mr. Voss, I understand, but donor identity is protected, in the registry cases especially." This wasn't a registry case. Damien had read enough of the file to know that much. It was a directed donation. Someone chose to give it, to my father. "I want a name." "I can't give you that. I can have my attorneys." "You can have anyone you like." Dr. Reyes said it without heat, the way Sophie had said you usually were. "It won't change privacy law. When the donor is ready to be known, you'll know. That's their decision, not yours." "Not yours." Damien's hand went to his cuff, turned the link a quarter inch. He was afraid, and he did not know of what, and being afraid without a target was the one condition he had never learned to survive. Dr. Reyes was paged and hurried off, and Damien was left standing at the nurse's station. And this is where a man's own nature became the trap it had always been. He could not let it go. He never could. The chart was right there, a tablet actually, left glowing on the counter while the unit clerk stepped away to answer a phone. His father's chart, open to the transplant summary. He told himself he had every right. He was next of kin. He was paying for all of it. He turned the tablet toward himself and scrolled. Donor, directed, allogeneic. Relationship to recipient, biological grandson. Damien read it 3 times. Grandson. His father had one son, Damien himself, and Damien had no children. He had made very sure of that, once, on a night with an envelope on a table. He was still standing there, the word grandson burning behind his eyes, when the door to the pediatric recovery bay swung open down the hall, and a small figure came out walking carefully, one hand held by his mother. The boy from the corridor. Striped shirt, 2 big shoulders, a cotton ball taped into the crook of his arm, and around his wrist, white against the small skin, a hospital band. Damien's eyes found the band. He was too far to read it. He didn't need to. Sophie looked up and saw him seeing. She didn't flinch. She didn't fold the badge. She had passed, somewhere in the last hour, out of the reach of that old fear and into something steadier. She simply stood there with her son's hand in hers and let Damien arrive, at last, at the truth she had carried alone for 8 years. He walked toward them like a man walking underwater. He stopped in front of the boy. He looked, really looked, for the first time, at the child he had stepped past 2 weeks ago. The level chin, the serious eyes. The way the boy, uneasy under a stranger's stare, reached over and adjusted his mother's lanyard so the badge sat straight, because things ought to sit where they belonged. Damien did the math the way he had once done it at a kitchen table. 8 years, the face, the word on the chart. His knees stopped holding him. He reached back and found the edge of a chair and lowered himself into it before he fell. "How?" he said. "It came out in pieces. You told me. I thought you told me," Sophie said quietly. "I never told you anything." The boy didn't understand what was happening. He knew only that the tall man in the nice suit had sat down very suddenly and gone the color of the hospital walls, and that his mother had gone still, in the particular way she went still, when something mattered a great deal. "Mama," he said. "It's okay, baby." She smoothed his hair. "You did so well today. I'm so proud of you." "Did it help, the man who was sick?" "Yes," she said. "It helped. You helped a lot." The boy smiled, satisfied, and went to sit on the bench a few feet away, and, because he was tired and it soothed him, began to line up the little paper cups from the water station in a neat row on the seat beside him. They were all the same size, so he arranged them by how full they were instead. Damien watched his son sort paper cups and could not breathe. "He's mine," he said. "He's mine," Sophie corrected, without cruelty. "He's been mine every day of his life. You weren't there for any of them." "Sophie, you want to know how your father is alive?" She kept her voice low for the boy. "I'll tell you. 3 months ago, Elias Voss went on the transplant list and no one matched. Not the registry. Not you. You were tested. You were half a match at best. The doctors were out of time." She paused. "I run the hematology consult service on this floor. I saw the case cross my desk. I saw the name. You could have walked away. I thought about it," she said it simply, "for about a minute, and then I did the thing I've spent 8 years teaching him to do. The right thing, even when the person doesn't deserve it, especially then." She glanced at her son. "He's a perfect match, Damien. Your father's grandson, the one person on this earth who could save him." He didn't hesitate when I explained it. He said, "If someone's grandpa is sick, we should help. He doesn't even know whose grandpa it is." Damien put his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. He who treated emotion as weakness, who had built a fortress against exactly this, wept in a plastic chair on the 7th floor, while a woman he had thrown away watched without triumph. When he could speak, he looked up at her, and the question was the oldest one there is. "Why," he said, "after what I did, why would you save any of us?" Sophie looked at him for a long moment, and then she said, the thing he would hear for the rest of his life, in every quiet room, in every mirror where he reached to straighten a cuff. "You once told me he wasn't worth keeping," she said. "Today, he's the only reason your father is still breathing." She let it sit. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't point. She had waited 8 years, and she did not spend the moment on anger, because anger was his language, and she had spent her whole life refusing to teach it to her son. "He never knew you existed," she said. "Whether that changes will be his choice, when he's old enough. Not mine, and not yours. But you should know what you almost did. You had a chance to walk away from him forever, and the one you walked away from is the reason your whole bloodline is still here." The boy tugged her sleeve. "Can we get pancakes?" "You said if I was brave." "You were the bravest," she said. "Pancakes it is." She looked at Damien one last time, not with hatred, and not with forgiveness either, but with something that had moved beyond both, out of his reach, into a life he had never earned a place in. "Take care of your father," she said, and she led her son down the corridor, past the ICU where an old man slept with new blood in his veins, past the nurse's station where a chart still glowed with a word Damien would never stop reading, out through the doors and into the ordinary afternoon. The boy was talking about pancakes. He held her hand and swung it a little, the way children do when the worst is over and they don't know they were ever in danger. Behind them, in a plastic chair, the richest man on the floor sat with nothing in his hands at all. The life he had turned away walked back in on a quiet afternoon and saved everything he loved, and then walked back out, whole and kind and entirely unafraid of him. That, in the end, was the part he could not survive. Not that he had lost her. That she had been right. Sophie never asked for an apology. She never asked for anything, not the money, not the name, not the satisfaction of watching him break. She just kept doing the next right thing, quietly, until the day the world had to reckon with everything it had thrown away. If that landed somewhere real for you, stay with us. Subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear that the choice you make in the dark kitchen, the hard, quiet, uncelebrated one, is the choice that decides everything.